Hello, my name is April James. My Indian name is Achpianak, which means men's nets, and I am from the Swinomish tribe. I'm here today to talk about Moon of the Whistling Robins. Moon of the Whistling Robins occurs during much of April. The sounds of bird songs signals springtime. Greens, fish, and shellfish are harvested. Ironwood, also called ocean spray, is harvested and used for making a variety of hunting, fishing, and gathering tools, including fish spears, fish sticks for cooking, digging sticks, and lawn needles for sewing cattail mats. In these modern times, the importance of drinking good, clean water is brought to the surface during this moon. Kimberly Miller of Skokomish tribe says, "Water is one of our most important spiritual medicines. The morning dew from the sword fern, the rain, and even the water we drink every day can purify and cleanse us. Water is precious, and you have to ask for its healing. Water is life. Water is sacred." 13 Moons activities pertaining to water are held in the Cedar Box Teaching Toolkit created by Elise Crone and Val Segrest. 13 Moons organizes yearly events to clean beaches on the Swinomish Reservation.
Hello, my name is Brian Porter. My traditional name is Yaquilius, and we are here at Snewish Beach, and I wanted to share a little bit about our traditional use of ironwood and how we harvest and what their purpose is. I have a set of ironwood sticks, and these are used for barbecuing fish on an open fire. So what we do is we take the fish fillet and put the stick in between the skin and the salmon meat, and we would put this over the fire and turn it. This is ironwood, so ironwood isn't very flammable. And the ironwood heats up and will cook the inside of the fish at the same time as cooking the outside of the fish, so the fish is cooked evenly. My uncle Gus Stone Jr. also shared with me and showed me how to harvest ironwood. So he was real adamant about only taking what you need. So what he taught us is leave the branch intact and just peel off half. And we'll carve the bark off, and then there's a little spongy center to this, and we'll carve that out so it doesn't get on the fish. We put a point on it so you can poke the fish through. And then the other end you make a handle. And then before I use this, I will probably drown it in some kind of oil, olive oil or vegetable oil, so they don't stick. The beginning of May, the springtime, is usually a good time to harvest ironwood. There are other methods, like you can cut down the whole bush and take them that way, but then you're not going to be able to come back to that place. Like when I harvest ironwood, I use this plant over here in the Snewish property, and that's where I get my ironwood, from the same plant. And I've been doing that for 20 years, so the plant's still here 20 years later, and the method that my uncle taught me has helped to preserve that. This particular set was made by the late Claude Wilbur Sr., Cutspat suit. During his funeral, they handed these out as a giveaway. So this is how I ended up with some of Claude's work. Ironwood is it's a very important part of our way of life, and how we prepare food. When I first learned how to cook salmon, my uncle gave me a 30-pound king and told me don't mess it up. We try not to give you raw fish, And then we try not to give you dry fish, so there's a median. That was emphasized with our elders, and they'll critique your fish, by the way. We take pride in putting barbecued fish on the table when we have a gathering. We can cook a really good piece of fish.
This is the Suquamish story called The Gossiping Clams. Long, long ago, when the world was new and the animals could talk, clams were the most talkative of all. And no wonder, for their mouths stretched the full length of their bodies. The clams not only loved to talk, they told stories as well. Some of their stories were true and some were not. "Did you know," said one clam to Eagle, who was eating a fish on the beach, "that Raven says he is a much better hunter than you?" "Perhaps that is true," scoffed Eagle, "if picking at carrion can be called hunting." Once, when Otter came down to the beach to splash in the water, another clam said to him, "I don't think you make yourself look foolish when you come down to play in the waves." "Who said I looked foolish?" demanded Otter. "I really shouldn't say," said the clam, "but you might go and ask Beaver. Beaver thinks that everyone should work as hard as she does." It wasn't long before all the animals were quarreling at each other, and all because of the stories that the clams were spreading. Raven finally got so tired of all the gossiping that he called a council and invited all the animals to join. Bear, eagle, mink, otter, wolf, and many others came. It was decided at that meeting that in order to preserve the peace, a way must be found to put a stop to these unkind stories. "Beaver," said Raven, "we cannot decide how to punish the clams. You are a good worker. We know that you will keep working until you discover a solution, so we have chosen you to rid us of this problem." Beaver thought and thought, and at last she thought of a plan. She gathered up armloads of the clams, every last one of them, and carried them to the edge of the water. "What are you doing?" they asked in alarm. "You shall see soon enough," replied Beaver. "Never again will you spread your mean-spirited tales." Beaver waited there until the tide went out, and then quickly she buried each and every one of those clams in the sand. The clams were outraged. When Bear came down to walk along the beach, one of the clams opened up its mouth to tattle on Beaver. But as soon as it did, sand and water ran in. The clam sputtered out and spit the water. Again it opened its mouth, but as soon as it did, the sand and water ran into it, and all the poor clam could do was spit out the water and close its mouth. Even today, if you walk along the beach at low tide, you might see a little spurt of water squirting up from beneath the sand here and there. That is just a clam spitting out the water it swallowed when it opened its mouth to gossip.
Hi, my name is Mike Height. I would like to welcome you to the 13 Moons Garden. I'm the garden manager at Swinomish Indian Tribal Community, and I am also the wild plant and medicine educator for the tribe. I would like to introduce you to our Elders Garden, which we built a few Earth Days ago as a community project. Interns built these nice tall raised beds so it makes it easy access for the elders, and we covered the ground with crushed oyster shell to make it easy to maneuver for those with walkers or who have trouble navigating uneven ground. As you enter the Northwest Indian College Swinomish campus, you will be greeted by this welcome sign to the 13 Moons Garden. Many of the plants here are demonstration plants that are used at the college, as well as our workshops. As we move along, we come to our horsetail patch, which many people struggle with in their gardens. We just let it grow. It's from the dinosaur times. You're never going to get rid of it. It has very, very deep roots, but it is the original mineral water. Each one of these sections has a little bit of mineral water in it. You break it off, you squeeze it, and you drink it. Full of silica, makes a fantastic hair rinse, and you can make teas out of it, which are also full of vitamins and minerals that other plants can't get because their roots are so deep. So make friends with this dinosaur plant, horsetail. And here we have Indian plum, one of the best bitter greens in early spring that you can eat. It tastes like bitter cucumber, and it's one of the best digestives you can enjoy. So Indian plum gets a beautiful little plum, first turns yellow and then a deep purple as it ripens, and it tastes exactly like the leaf. It's amazing. So next time you see Indian plum out, take a nibble and see what you think. I really like it. And next we have red flowering currant, another native berry bush that we have in the Northwest. These blossoms can be picked and dried for a wonderful tea that we like to mix with maple blossom that's dried. These are very prolific, so you don't have to feel guilty about harvesting blossoms because they produce very, very heavily. And we also like to dry the leaves along with it to make that tea. And they're just so full of vitamin C and vibrant and wonderful. And the currants can be made into jams and jellies and tea also. So we like to make combinations of berries with blossoms that they came from. So our next part of the garden is focusing on trees. This is the native cascara tree. Many people have used this bark for centuries for ailments of the gut. But it's important to note that cascara bark needs to be cured for a year because it's too strong to use fresh. And look how deer know that it's medicinal too. Look how they scrape on it with their horns. But I also like to look at the leaves because they're such a beautiful green, and look at the backside, how deeply ridged they are. We feel very fortunate to have a lovely greenhouse with heat and fans and lights. And we are growing our spring plants to plant out in the garden soon. They're hardening up. These were all sprouted in the greenhouse. So we're going to have a lovely amount of squash and many other plants to offer the community this summer. Moving on, we come to our pollinator garden. We like to implement pollinators as much in the garden as possible. So we have lupin and mock orange here, and then we have our evergreen huckleberry patch. Well, I hope you enjoyed our tour of the 13 Moons Garden at Swinomish. It's a wonderful place to come and learn and explore and to harvest. So come visit us sometime and we'll join you in a cup of medicinal tea.